Video games are becoming the #1 form of entertainment globally. But what makes a game successful? With thousands of game titles competing for players' attention, a game needs to quickly immerse the player in a stimulating environment and provide a compelling experience. Games user experience design is the process of researching the player, understanding their motivations, and guiding game design efforts according to player feedback. Globalization is the process in which businesses take into account the cultural differences of their global user base and modify their products accordingly. For games to be successful in the modern global marketplace, they need to be globalized and ensure that they are accessible to players from all backgrounds. Have you ever tried to focus on a video game and found yourself distracted and not wanting to play? In that scenario, there was no game feel, and the user experience was poor. A lot of variables have to align to produce game feel, and a user experience designer's job is to ensure that as many variables align as possible. Perhaps the most significant factor for player immersion is the game's user interface. A game's UI refers to the collective menu screens, widgets, and visuals provided to the player that communicate necessary details about the player's character and game environment. UX designers can also use animation, sound, colors, and camera shakes that give much more depth to the relationships between players and characters. To develop this relationship and empathy for the characters, UX designers can use dialogues accompanied by visuals and audio. These add weight to certain lines, which produce a connection between players and their characters. But where does globalization come in? Just like other digital products, globalization efforts can significantly impact the success of a game or studio. The Ratchet & Clank video game series, developed in California, gave careful attention to their localization process, and as a result, the nuances found in the English version of the game transferred to other languages as well. The series became such a global fan favorite that a Japanese manga based on the series came out 2 years after its release. On the other side, Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2 has become notorious over its poor localization efforts. In a mission censored in the Russian version due to its controversy, there is a quote, "Remember no Russian," that meant that Russian wasn't to be spoken during the mission, but was translated in the Japanese version as "kill them, they're Russian." This resulted in Sony Russia pulling the game from distribution and the developers alienating fans while missing out on a major market. Game studios don't typically have a defined structure of who is handling localization, or even where UX designers belong in the development process. This is because UX designers should really be involved in the entire development process, ensuring that the game is developed with players' feedback in mind, and the same goes for globalization efforts. UX designers have 2 major tools to globalize their products: translation and localization. In games, translation can make or break how characters and the game world are conveyed. If translation is performed by a non-native speaker, colloquialisms and nuances of character speech can be eliminated, and global players' experience can suffer. Relying solely on translation, however, could result in an inappropriate cultural reference, which is why localization is necessary. Localization is the process of understanding a region's language and culture and ensuring that the product is communicating the intended experience to the people in that region. Kate Edwards, a culturalization consultant for video games, outlines 4 steps for development teams to incorporate globalization. First is gain awareness. Make sure that everyone on the development team from pre-production onward has an awareness of the culture that the game will draw from. The second step is to identify issues. Every new element, storyline, or character should be examined to ensure that its presence is respectful of its culture. The third step is to assess severity. Issues should be triaged, and the most severe should be targeted first, with the least severe being targeted as time and monetary budgets allow. And the fourth step is to implement with precision, to make the smallest possible changes to resolve issues. In summary, Poor globalization efforts can lead to offended players or even tarnish the game studio's reputation. UX professionals are in a unique position to lead globalization endeavors.